Welcome back. Most of us are probably eagerly awaiting for some patch 6 news, so in the meantime, let's talk about cantrips. In my previous Baldur's Gate 3 video, I went over the top 10 combat spells, and I'll put links to that above, below, and in the video description. In today's video, though, I'm going to be talking about the most useful cantrips. And cantrips in Baldur's Gate 3 are level 0 spells that can be cast at will. They do not require a spell slot. The cantrips in this video have proven to be extra useful for myself on my playthrough. You guys may want to consider taking some of them along with you. For more Baldur's Gate 3 content, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Links to my Twitter, my Discord, and the Got Dice t-shirts will be below. Let's get right into it. The first cantrip I'm going to start off with is the Friends cantrip. Currently in early access, Friends can be picked up by the Wizard and Warlock class, which should also be available when playing as a Bard and Sorcerer when we one day get access to those classes. Patch 6, patch 6, patch 6. Don't forget though that playing as the High Elf race or a High Half Elf will grant you the choice of a Wizard cantrip right away in character creation, regardless of class. Friends is described as enchant a non-hostile creature to gain advantage on charisma checks against it. And as you can see, this cantrip does require concentration. Gaining advantage in Baldur's Gate 3 for anything allows you to roll 2d20s instead of 1, and you get to use the higher roll, and this in turn of course dramatically increases your chances of success. With the addition of the new active roll system with patch 5, Friends has become very easy and convenient to use. All you have to do is simply click on it when presented with a charisma dialogue check, and the game will apply this enchantment to the creature that you're talking to. It's important to note though that Friends only pops up as an option to use with the character of yours that has the cantrip itself, so make sure to use that character for dialogue where you think you may need it. Charisma ability checks in Baldur's Gate 3 will happen when you have the option to attempt to persuade, deceive, intimidate, or give a performance. In 5th edition D&D, the creature that you cast Friends on actually becomes hostile towards you after the cantrip ends, but this is not the case in Baldur's Gate 3, at least in its current version. Next up is Light, or Dancing Lights. Which one is better? Well, first let me point out that both of these cantrips provide light, which of course can be very useful in the many darker areas of early access. Attacking an enemy that is in dimly lit conditions means you'll be attacking with disadvantage, and when you have disadvantage, your character rolls 2d20s, but unfortunately you now have to take the lower roll, and this in turn of course dramatically decreases your chances of succeeding on your attack rolls, and you're going to miss like crazy. Characters that have dark vision or superior dark vision won't have this problem nearly as much as others, and you of course always have the option of pulling out a torch, but torches take up one of your valuable hands. Both the Light and Dancing Lights cantrip offer solutions to this. The Light cantrip is described as infuse an object with an aura of light. This cantrip is for the Wizard and Cleric, and therefore High Elves can also pick it up. Whatever object you choose to cast light on, you will have to be within 5 feet of it, and that object will shed light with a radius of 40 feet. So anything within 40 feet of that lit object will now be clearly visible. You can cast light on most targetable objects in the game, but you can also target yourself or another party member, and this in turn will light up their weapon, and you now have a mobile light source. This can be really useful to use on your melee-focused party members, as they'll be on the front lines lighting up all of the enemies wherever they go. When early access initially came out, you could actually cast light on multiple objects, but this is no longer the case. It's only one object at a time. Light is really easy to use, and it has a very long duration, giving you the opportunity to cast it well before combat begins and not waste a turn in combat. The other cantrip that provides light is Dancing Lights, but this cantrip requires concentration, making it less appealing at times. It's described as create wisps of light that illuminate a 40-foot radius, which is the same radius that the Light cantrip gives off. Dancing Lights is a Wizard cantrip and can therefore also be picked up as a High Elf. What makes this cantrip different from the Light cantrip is that you don't cast it on an object. You can place the lights wherever you want, and on top of that you have a 60-foot casting range. This in turn can make it very useful, especially if there's an enemy shooting your party from far off in the shadows. If possible, I like to have both light and dancing lights available for use if need be, because there will be situations where one may be more useful than the other. Light is obviously easier to use and doesn't require concentration, but dancing light's casting range just cannot be ignored. Dancing lights may also get a few buffs in the future if Larian decides to make it more similar to 5th edition, such as being able to move the lights and also being able to spread them out. Now onto a classic cantrip called Firebolt. I don't know of many who wouldn't take a fire-based cantrip like this into a Larian Studios game. Firebolt is described as hurl a mote of fire that deals 1d10 fire damage, and this cantrip has a range of 60 feet. Firebolt can be picked up by the wizard class, but also the sorcerer when we get access to it, and of course playing as a high elf. Being a cantrip, the damage itself is not crazy high, but it's still one of the higher damage dealing cantrips, and that alone may be enough to qualify it as being one of the most useful cantrips, but what really sets it above others is the ability to set things on fire. I sometimes find myself using it solely for that purpose. If you see smoke powder barrels near some enemies, shoot Firebolt at them and watch the room explode. If enemies are standing on something flammable like grease, shoot Firebolt at one of the enemies, dealing that 1d10 damage, and then also watch the grease light on fire, dealing even more damage. Sometimes you may be just out of spell slots and you can use Firebolt for its base damage. It's especially useful against the wood woads in the swamp as they're vulnerable to fire damage. Having a cantrip that can be used to deal decent damage but also has the potential to wreak havoc on an entire battlefield makes it a very valuable cantrip to have in your arsenal. Before I move on to the final two cantrips, I do want to briefly mention another cantrip that's kind of similar to Firebolt, but the cold version of it, and that is Ray of Frost. If I had to choose between Firebolt or Ray of Frost, I would take Firebolt first, but Ray of Frost is not to be ignored. This cantrip calls forth a frigid beam of blue-white light which deals 1d8 cold damage and reduces the target's movement speed by 10 feet. Like with Firebolt, it is a wizard and sorcerer cantrip. So with Ray of Frost, you're getting 2 less potential base damage than with Firebolt, but you're gaining the benefit of reducing your target's movement speed. So this is best used on enemy melee combatants to help keep them back. One thing that some may not realize with this cantrip is that if you cast it over a blood surface or a water surface, or cast it on an enemy that is standing in a blood or water surface, this cantrip creates ice terrain, which further reduces enemy movement and also possibly makes an enemy fall prone. So now you're getting potentially 3 benefits out of this one cantrip. Next up is a boring cantrip, but my god is it useful, and this is perhaps the most used cantrip in all of early access, and that is Guidance. Guidance can be picked up by the cleric or druid class, and it reads as bestow guidance upon a creature. It receives 1d4 bonus to ability checks. So ability checks in Baldur's Gate 3 test a character's abilities when performing actions. All of the rolls that you get in dialogue are ability checks, and also mechanics such as picking locks and passive perception checks to spot hidden things. Guidance does require concentration, but it will mostly be used outside of combat, so it's not a big deal. But keep in mind that the Friends cantrip also requires concentration, so both of these cannot be cast together by the same caster. If you want to take advantage of them both on a charisma ability check, and let me note that this is an insanely powerful combination, you have to have one party member that has Guidance and another one that has Friends. Like Friends, Guidance is super easy to use in dialogue, especially with the new active roll system. All you have to do is either click Guidance and have it added to your roll, or you can cast it on a character before entering dialogue. As for ability checks that don't have active rolls, such as lockpicking and perception checks, just make sure to cast it on a character before attempting the ability check, and then you'll get that added 1d4 that will take place behind the scenes. Baldur's Gate 3 is filled with ability checks, and this boost that you can get to them will make a huge overall difference to your success rate. You should be casting Guidance quite a lot. And last but not least, the cantrip that doesn't belong here because it's too damn powerful, Eldritch Blast. Eldritch Blast is a warlock cantrip that conjures a beam of crackling energy that deals 1d10 force damage. But Wolf, Firebolt was also 1d10, why is this one so special? Well, first of all, force damage is the least resisted of the damage types. But even more importantly, when you reach level 2 as a warlock, you get to choose 2 eldritch invocations. Some of these invocations deal directly with your eldritch blast, making it much more powerful. Choosing Agonizing Blast allows your warlock to add their charisma modifier to the damage of their eldritch blast. And by early access max level of 4, that will likely be an extra 4 points of damage per blast for your warlock. It's still not insane total damage, but really good for a spell that doesn't cost you a spell slot to use. If you combo Agonizing Blast with Repelling Blast, your eldritch blast will now also knock enemies back. And in a game like Baldur's Gate 3 with so much verticality, this makes Eldritch Blast have the potential to be insanely powerful. Your Warlock basically has its own single target distance Thunder Wave, and you guys know how much I like Thunder Wave. Let's also not forget that you can use the Warlock spell called Hex on your targets before casting Eldritch Blast. And Hex only costs a bonus action, so you can actually use Hex and then Eldritch Blast, and Hex gives an additional 1d6 necrotic damage on top of that 1d10 force damage and your charisma modifier boost. There's a reason why Warlocks only have 2 spell slots, and that reason is Eldritch Blast. But wait, it's time for a bonus cantrip. But in truth, I actually just forgot about it. And this cantrip is a druid cantrip by the name of Thorn Whip. Thorn Whip only does 1d6 damage, but the damage isn't why this one can be so great. Thorn Whip also pulls enemies closer to you, and if you can cleverly position yourself to where the pull actually pulls an enemy off an elevated area, you can do some serious damage. Check out this one shot of one of the deadly minotaurs. Get the hell away from me. So yeah, I recommend having Thorn Whip if you're a druid, and sometimes it might even be worth coming out of wild shape to use it. And that'll be it for today's video. Thank you so much to those of you that made it all the way to the end. I definitely want to hear your guys' opinions on the cantrips that you've been using in your Baldur's Gate 3 playthroughs, so let us know below in the comments. Oh no, here we go. Here we go. If you... it's a mental thing. It's a mental thing. If you ended up enjoying this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll post more Baldur's Gate 3 content. That's what I'm here for, baby. Let's go.